Good afternoon, I'm James Tarbox. I serve as the 12th Judicial Circuit District Attorney covering Coffee and Pike County. With me is Chief Michael Moore of the Enterprise Police Department. We wanted to provide some background and answer general questions regarding a recent arrest made here in Enterprise on a case that is set for an Anayas Law hearing this afternoon on defendant Pablo Mendoza. I'll read a prepared statement and then we will take your questions. On March 25th, 23-year-old Pablo Mendoza was arrested following an investigation related to human trafficking in Enterprise. The investigation was conducted by multiple agencies to include the Enterprise Police Department, the Alabama Attorney General's Office, the United States Department of Homeland Security, and the Coffee County Department of Human Resources. Defendant Pablo Mendoza is an illegal immigrant who has previously been deported from the United States and has returned illegally to the United States. As a result of the investigation, Mendoza was originally charged with rape in the first degree, as has been previously reported by multiple outlets. Following an extensive review by this office, I, along with other assistant district attorneys, determined that the most appropriate charges based upon the investigation and evidence currently available in this case would be human trafficking in the first degree, sodomy second degree, and sex abuse second degree. The Enterprise Police Department obtained these new arrest warrants and executed the warrants on defendant Mendoza late Tuesday at the Coffee County Jail. The rape first charge has since been dismissed. Evidence collected during the investigation revealed that our 14-year-old female victim had ongoing contact with the defendant for several days. During that time, the defendant engaged in sexual conduct with our victim, provided her with food, alcohol, and shelter, and attempted to solicit and lure the minor victim to leave Coffee County and the state of Alabama with an unknown male. I expect testimony to be provided that will indicate that the defendant promised to take care of the victim, provide her with money, and asked her to change her appearance as part of his attempts to lure her away to this unknown male subject. In addition, I expect testimony to be provided that will indicate that defendant Mendoza attempted to threaten the minor victim and told her not to speak about this matter with her parents or the police. A hearing will be conducted by District Judge Josh Wilson at approximately 3:30 today, pursuant to Code of Alabama, Section 1513.3, better known as Anayas Law. At the hearing, the state will be represented by Assistant District Attorney Jeremy Mitchell, and we will ask the court to hold defendant Mendoza without bond in the Coffee County Jail based upon the nature of this offense, the danger that he poses to the public at large, and his status as a flight risk to flee this jurisdiction. I want to say that I appreciate the work of the Enterprise Police Department, Chief Moore, as well as his detectives in the Criminal Investigations Division as part of their work on this case and their ongoing cooperation and collaboration with this office to ensure that this defendant is brought to justice. And we will take your questions.
Moore, I'll start with you. Whenever you were first investigating this, can you kind of just talk about what led to this? Was it a tip from a parent? Kind of tell us what led to the arrest of Mendoza.
It was a tip from the parent, and then the victim spoke to her school resource officer in depth, which caused her obvious great alarm, which she contacted the investigations and it pursued from there.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, whenever it was originally reported, I think there was something that said that the victim also, in addition to being underage, dealt with maybe some form of mental disabilities or anything like that. Can that be confirmed? Or?
That's not accurate. There is no mental incapacitation of the child.
Well, I think the evidence is going to show that there may be potential incapacitation due to intoxication based upon the alcohol that was provided and made available to the minor. Any reporting that would indicate that the minor victim has an intellectual disability or is otherwise disabled. Anything in that light is not accurate.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I also, you had said something about leaving the area and leaving Alabama. Do we know, where they were found, where they took off, or anything such as that?
Thankfully, and Chief, you can back me up on this. Thankfully, the victim did not ultimately go with the defendant. There's other pieces of that investigation that we cannot get into today. As we indicated, multiple agencies were involved in this, and there are pieces that we cannot discuss publicly at this time. But I can tell you without a doubt, based upon what I've reviewed, and I think Chief Moore feels the same way, that if this defendant had had the chance and if this victim had done what he had asked, that we would have a missing 14-year-old girl, and she would not be in our area. And based upon how things like this tend to operate, I don't know if we would see her again. Yes,
do we know how long Mr. Mendoza has been in either Enterprise or in Coffee County or in the country?
I'm not aware of that. I can tell you that the Department of Homeland Security was called about his status, and they were able to confirm for law enforcement that they had record that he was previously deported, and then we know that he was back. Something like that is typically not going to be available to local resources without, I guess, working with the feds. And so I don't have a file that will indicate that kind of status or answer your question accurately.
And do you know, and where in the country where was he deported to the first time?
I don't have that information available to me right now.
Okay, and I wanted to ask, was there any new information that came about that resulted in those charges, or was it just?
I think it would be fair to say that when you have multiple agencies investigating something, and then when you want to make a move because of the transient nature of the defendant, charges were brought that the investigators thought were appropriate based upon information they received. When our office gets a file, we have to typically put several pieces of a puzzle together. In this case, you had multiple agencies involved. And so when we began to review, we felt like the rape first was probably not the most appropriate charge. And we felt like the factors were there under the code to meet human trafficking first. And so that's why the charge was changed. At the end of the day, all investigations have some intricacies and complications. This one, because of the number of people involved, because of certain language barriers involved, both with the victim, her family, as well as the defendant and people who live in that community, was further complicated. And so, we have an ethical and professional obligation in this office to make sure that when charges are brought, that they're brought with good faith, knowing that we have probable cause to bring them. And so that is why the decision was made to drop the rape first, but the human trafficking was brought. And when we look at human trafficking first, it is a charge that is enumerated in 1513.3 Anaya's law. It is still a Class A felony for which someone can be held without bond, and for which, even on a first-time offense, the sentencing range is 10 to 99 years. And so I don't want anyone to think that this is not any less serious. This is a very serious charge. This is a very serious situation. And we're going to continue to treat it as such.
Thank you.
What kind of charges, what kind of sentence could he get upon conviction?
It really depends, and it's too early to tell,
Okay.
Michelle. Obviously, if he's convicted of human trafficking first, there's that 10 to 99 sentence range, 10 to 99 years.
Wow.
The sodomy second is a Class B felony under the laws of the state of Alabama, and sex abuse second is a Class A misdemeanor under the laws of the state of Alabama. And I should note that some of the facts and circumstances related to this matter are still under investigation as far as electronic evidence. And so I don't want to get too far out ahead on possible sentence and what we might ask for that would be inappropriate today. but that is what is statutorily available under the laws of the state of Alabama based on the charges that exist right now.
And then procedurally, what happens upon, let's just assume, maybe conviction, then serve the sentence, then do you get deported, or who do you belong to?
So it is our understanding that the Department of Homeland Security, Immigration, has placed a detainer on this individual at the Coffee County Jail. And so whenever he is released from custody, whether that be through posting a surety bond, if he's granted a bond, or after serving a sentence, whenever he's released from custody, that hold can be executed by the federal government, and he would be subject to immigration law and deportation at that point in time.
So even if he does receive bond, he could be deported after that?
Yes,
once he gets out of custody of Coffee County Jail.
That's obviously outside of mine and Chief Moore's purview, but that is my understanding of how the law is supposed to work.
Is there anything now that may lead you to believe that Mendoza may be involved with maybe more people or a bigger operation or anything such as that whenever it comes to human trafficking?
I think that's the part that's still under major investigation, is how far this reaches. He's been a person of interest for other things, and this was brought to our attention. As much as it is on him, as Mr. Tarbox and I talked about, my position in the city and protecting the city is simply, if you commit a crime, you'll go to jail, especially those against children. I don't care if you're from here, you're an immigrant, or you've been here for 47 years. If you commit a crime against a child, especially a child, you will be prosecuted as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's where we look at this one. It just so happens that he's also an immigrant, undocumented worker, whatever. And we have other aspects and other ways of dealing with him through immigration law.
I think the message that Chief and I want to impart is that, you know, Enterprise, Coffee County, this is a safe place to live. When crime occurs, his office is going to do the best that they can to investigate it. We're going to do the best that we can to prosecute it. This is an unfortunate situation. We are thankful that we don't have a lot of these situations, and we will treat this like any other crime where a child has been victimized. This person's illegal status happens to be a factor involved in arguing for bond because of the flight risk status, and it will be a factor that he has to face with the federal authorities, but it doesn't change our position that if you hurt a child, they're going to do everything they can to lock you up, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you stay there.
So now, on the judicial side of things, the next step is obviously the Anayas law hearing in just a short time, and then Chief Moore, you're saying that the next step for y'all in your investigation is to try to figure out the bandwidth of how far this really goes. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. I think it speaks volume to our area that not only did Mr. Mendoza not want the police notified for fear of prosecution, but also the parents felt comfortable enough to bring it to our attention for prosecution. And that's another aspect that I want to point out in our city and our community is I hope nobody fears if they're a victim. They're a victim. And we want to prosecute those that are victims, and that's our job as community servants, is to serve those that can't serve themselves or help themselves. So I appreciate the parents having the trust and bringing it to our attention, and I appreciate the DA's office taking this serious and prosecuting and setting up an Anayas law hearing and everything else.
Is it going to be a closed hearing? Are we allowed to be in it?
It should be a public hearing.
Yeah, because that means a juvenile.
There will be confidentiality involved as it relates to how she's identified. She's identified in court documents right now by her initials, and I anticipate that Judge Wilson will continue to identify her as such, and I anticipate that our witnesses today and in subsequent hearings will also identify her by her initials so that we can help maintain her privacy.
And sorry, just to reiterate one more time, you said the witnesses, could you elaborate a little bit on the witnesses that you're expecting to hear from today, or what you may hear, or what we can maybe expect to hear in the trial?
So we're a long way from a trial, but however, but the hearing today, the Anais Law hearing, we anticipate only calling one witness, which will be one of the main investigators from the Enterprise Police Department Criminal Investigations Division. I anticipate that you're going to hear some more of the fleshing out of what I described as it relates to the conduct by the defendant, as it relates to the interaction, how long that interaction was ongoing. I would call this a grooming situation, attempting to make our victim more comfortable with this situation, and then that attempt to lure her away from Enterprise, Coffee County, and to have her leave this area with that unknown male. So I anticipate you'll hear a little more fleshing out of that. Obviously, we're going to try to limit how much comes out, just because it is still under investigation. We're still waiting on matters that are typical in investigations, like phone dumps and some other electronic evidence. And then we also, my office needs to do the best we can to protect the integrity. There's only certain things that I can say at something like this. And so, that hearing will be kind of a roadmap of what the investigation shows right now and how we support the 3 charges that he's currently charged with.